Yesterday, for day 12 of my 100 Days of Code challenge, I covered what Flutter is in what I consider simple terms. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and check out my previous video for an easy explanation of what it is and how it works. For day 13, today let's dive a bit more into some Flutter fun. Flutter, as we discover, it's an incredible tool for crafting amazing applications that work across multiple platforms. However, to really dive into the art of app creation with Flutter, we have to get familiar with the language that Flutter is actually built on, and the language that pretty much powers it all. A programming language like Dart is a set of instructions that you write to tell the computer what to do. Think of it like a recipe for cooking. Just as you use a recipe to make a dish, you use a programming language to make a computer program. Dart is the language you speak to create your app. It has its own syntax or grammar, rules, and way to organize your code, like sentence and paragraphs in English. A framework, on the other hand, like Flutter, is more like a pre-built kitchen with a lot of tools and ingredients ready for you to use them. Flutter uses Dart as its language. Using Dart, it gives you widgets or components like buttons, text areas, and sliders, and many other functionality to create mobile apps or web, desktop, and as we saw, a lot of different platforms as well. So to recap, Dart is a language. You use it to write instructions, logic, and to define what your app does. Flutter is the framework. It understands Dart and provides you with easy to use tools to bring your app to life. So why is Dart important? Well, it is the backbone of Flutter. Flutter is like the magical toolbox, and Dart, it's kind of like how they built that magical toolbox, telling it specifically what to do. It is also easy to learn. If you're new to programming or have experience with languages like JavaScript or Java, learning Dart, it's gonna become just pretty easy to you. It's designed to be easy for beginners to grasp and powerful enough for experts to enjoy. Dart is also fast, which means that your apps will always run very smoothly. It also compiles into native code, which makes all of your Flutter apps feel like they were built for that specific device, whether it's Android, iOS, the web, or a bunch of other platforms as well. One of the coolest things about Dart, it's hot reload. It's kind of like as if you're painting or making a building, but every time you put a change, you see everything change right away. You don't have to wait for the materials to dry or have to rebuild the whole thing just to see what changed. You just make a change, see it right away. Make a change, see it hot reload. Amazing, right? This is definitely a huge time saver. It's also versatile. You can use Dart not only to build apps with Flutter, but you can also build web servers, console applications, and just kind of introduce it into a lot of other frameworks and platforms as well. It's like learning to cook a dish that you can serve as an appetizer, main course, and dessert. Let's go ahead and take a look at Dart in action. Let's start with some core concepts and the syntax of Dart. I'm gonna go ahead and create a new file here. We're gonna call it just, day 13.dart. Every Dart file has to have the .dart extension. That's what tells the computer that this is an actual Dart file. So every programming journey often starts with the classic hello world. According to ChatGPT, hello world, or this hello world program, which every language and pretty much every time you're starting to learn a programming language, you do a basic hello world program, seems to be around since 1978, when the first book for C programming language written by Brian Kernighan and Dennis Ritchie, which was published again in 1978. It just seemed like an easy way to explain the syntax of C, and now we're gonna go ahead and use it to explain the syntax of Dart as well. So let's go ahead and take a look. Here's how it looks in Dart. So we have a main function over here, and we're going to go ahead and write hello world. So this code defines a main function, which is the starting point for every Dart app. And then it uses the print function to output something to the console. Let's go ahead and click right here and run it. And we can see hello world over here. This right here, this area at the bottom is what we call the console. Sometimes you'll hear the terminal, the console, they're pretty much the same. Now we'll take a look at what variables and types are in Dart. So let's go ahead and do variables and types. So we have, in this case, we're going to define a string greeting, hello Dart, make it a bit more fun, and int number equal to 42. So here greeting is a string, which is just, you can think of it like a string of characters, right? Like if you were to put together a bunch of characters in like string, then you would have what we call a string of characters. In this case, this is to represent text. So you can see I can put text inside of that and store it in my greeting variable of type string. And we also have the answer to the universe. Sorry, 42. Long running joke. But this number is an integer, in this case an int or a whole number. So let's go ahead and do here. So this is string, which is equal to text. And then we have an int, which is an integer or whole number. Yeah. We can also define here functions. As you saw, I talked about the main function, which is the kind of the starting point of every Flutter app or every Dart app. Sorry, I stand corrected. So let's take a look at what a function is and how it's defined. Functions are like a recipe. They take in some ingredients, in this case parameters, do something with those parameters, and sometimes they return something. So for example, here we have, this is going to be of return type string. So it's going to return or give us back a string. This is the function name. It's called greet. As I said, it takes some ingredients, right? Or some parameters. In this case, it's going to take the name and it's going to return to us, as we mentioned before, a string or a piece of text with the text hello, and it's going to replace that name or variable or parameter there with the name that we passed. And the way that we call it is that we can go ahead and call it as greet, and we pass in, for example, my name, Jose, not Joseph. Who's Joseph? Jose, and then we're going to go ahead and store this. So actually, let's go ahead and call it right over here. So instead of print hello world, let's go ahead and do inside my print, we're going to do greet Jose. And then now notice how I'm passing only Jose to my greet function. And then when I run it, I actually see hello Jose. And if you notice, I can just do this multiple times and now pass in here. Now let's do actually Joseph. Let's do Maria and Jesus. I'm not even that religious. And when I save this and run it, as you can see, it says hello Jose, hello Joseph, hello Maria, and hello Jesus. The cool thing about functions is that you can reuse them as I'm doing here. I don't have to rewrite the same code for what it does on the inside. I just know that I pass in some parameters and it's gonna go ahead and just do that with the parameters, whatever it needs to do with the parameters, and return the values that I'm expecting to me. We also have control flows. What's a control flow? These are logical decision makers, like deciding between choosing chocolate or vanilla. So let's go ahead and take an example of what control flow is. In this case, we're gonna go ahead and we're going to, again, declare a number. And then we're gonna go ahead and say, if the number is greater than 0, then we're going to print the number is positive. Otherwise, so else if, we have another if condition. If the number is less than 0, we're going to say the number is negative. Else or otherwise, the number is 0. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we get in our main function. And we see that the number is positive, right? Because we have a 42. If I change this to 0, let's run this again. The number is 0. And if I change this to negative 12, for example, we see the number is negative. The cool thing about this is that I can check for more conditions, right? In this case, I only have one else if, but I can add multiple else ifs if I want to, like to check, oh, is the number 0? Is the number 1? Is the number divisible by 2? Is the number greater than 1 million? I can do many different things. And this is what drives a lot of the conditions that you do in code. Like, for example, imagine a self-driving car. You decide, hey, if you run into a stop sign and you see a car, press the brake, right? If stop sign and see car, brake. Otherwise, keep going. Things like that, right? I mean, you should probably stop at a stop sign all the time, even if you don't see a car, but you get the idea. We also have loops. Loops allow us to do something multiple times. Like, for example, let's say we need to count to 1 million, and then every time we hit 2, we are going to print a number or something. In this case, we're going to go ahead and loop from 0. So this is my starting condition up to when I it's less than 10. So we start as we define my starting condition. I'm going to set this variable I to 0. Then I'm going to continue looping until I is less than 10. And then on each step, I'm going to increment my I. So what does it mean to increment? I'm just gonna up it by 1, right? So at first we're going to be 0, then we're going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're going to continue doing that while my I is less than 10. So let's go ahead and do that over here, and I'm going to just comment this out for now. But if I run this, as you can see over here, let me make this a bit bigger. We start at 0, then we go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we stop. We don't print 10 though, and this is good to know, because as I said, my condition is that we were going to do this while I was less than 10. As soon as I is 10 or greater than 10, we no longer go in here, we no longer print or do anything with it. That's why we start at 0, we print 0, we go up by 1, so now we're at 1, we print 1, and then we'd keep doing that. If I change this condition to, for example, while I is less than or equal to 0, if I run this again, now you see that I do get a 10. Now I get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because when I is 10, my condition is still true, and I go and print whatever value I need to print. In Dart, we also have classes and objects. What are classes and objects? Classes are like blueprints to build something, for example, in this case, a house, and objects are the actual built house from the blueprint. So again, a class is like a blueprint, an object is the built house, right? Like the built house. So let's go ahead and define a class here. I'm going to go ahead and do that maybe just down here. And I'm going to go ahead and declare class car. The way that we define that it's a class is that we call it class, and then we give it a name. Typically, the name of classes starts with an uppercase letter just by convention, and a lot of different languages actually force you to do it. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and go with car with capital C. And in here, we're going to have a couple parameters, like for example, the model of the car and the year of the car. We then have to actually give a way for you to pass in what the model of the car is and what the year of the car is. So we do that by setting a constructor. A constructor is just how we provide those values, parameters, fields to our class. So that way, every time I want to use this blueprint of a car, then we can pass in what the model is and create the model and the year and create an actual car. And now if we want to go ahead and actually create that car, what we can do is we set, hey, now I'm going to have a variable of type car named, well, in this case, car. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a model of BMW and the year 2021. Notice how, as we learned before, this is a string that I'm passing in as my model, and the year is an integer or a whole number, right? Integer number over here. So that we have a BMW 2021 car. So again, the class, it's like a blueprint to build something, and the object is like the actual built something. In this case, we have this is my class, my blueprint, and this right here, this car with a lowercase, is my object. And we can name it something different like car BMW, just so that we know that they're not the same. Car over here, defined, it's my class. Now I can create different cars. I can create a car Audi, as we can see here, 2020. I can create another car like, car Mercedes, 2019, and so on. So again, we have only one blueprint. That's my class. And then we can have multiple different types of cars or multiple different objects of my class car for whatever different models and years that we want to pass in. And in this case, we only have model and year, but we could have many different other things that we want to include for our classes or for our objects. Now it's practice time. How about now you try writing a small Dart program, maybe a function that takes in a number and tells you whether the number is odd or even. If you don't have a code editor like the one that I was showing, you can use Dartpad. Dartpad is an online code editor for Dart that's very, very helpful and allows you to run the code within your own browser. You can find that at dartpad.dev. So you can just type in dartpad.dev, and then you can see here. So just to give you an example, you're going to go ahead and write your function here. So you're going to write a function, takes in a number and tells you whether it is odd or even. And by tells you, I mean it prints it and tells you whether it's odd or even. And then let's say you're going to call it whatever you need, and then you're going to call that over here. And for example, we're going to call is odd or even, and then we're going to pass in whatever number, right? And once we run it, we should see our result here on the side. In this case, it's failing because I haven't really written the actual function to do this, but now you have a little homework. If you have any questions, make sure to send me a message or comment below, and I'm more than happy to assist you and help you in anything I can. This was day 13 of my 100 Days of Code challenge. It was such a pleasure going through this little Dart exercise with you. We'll continue taking a look at some more Flutter fun in the next few days. Peace.